Welcome, and welcome back, everybody, to the OK Grognard Show. Today is Wednesday, June 3rd, 2026, 10 a.m. Central, in beautiful Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. And we are going to take another look at the first edition Advanced Dungeons & Dragons Deities and Demigods in this part 3. And we're doing this. We've been looking at this book in honor of Jim Ward Day, which was May 23rd. So it's an extended celebration of Jim. This is the book that squarely fits in the early books, but squarely fits in the first edition books. That's what I focus on here. Jim, a great designer, 50 plus years of, started with TSR after working as a teacher in his younger life. In 76, Metamorphosis Alpha, the Deities book for original D&D. Gamma World came after that. And then this Deities and Demigods for first edition, which is where we're at. Hey, the Vince himself is in the chat. Hey, Vince, how are you? Thanks for joining us today. We're going to take one more look here at some of the main parts of Deities and Demigods. And we're going to hold off on doing any pantheons. We'll check out those a little later. And when I say pantheons, let's recap what we did in parts 1 and part 2. We talked a little bit about an excerpt from the foreword by Gary Gygax, which lays out the structure of the book and his guidance that he gave on it. And then we looked at the preface from Jim, and he talks about the plan behind it and the sensibilities that they brought to the fore. They were definitely culturally sensitive, as much as that can be done in the early mid-70s. Well, 80s, early 80s, first of the 80s, 1981, right? So we had that. And then we looked at Lawrence Schick's editor notes on the book, where he says, despite it looking like it was laid out much like the Monster Manual and other monster books, this is not meant to be that. Don't think of it as a pile of stat blocks for the consumption of the player characters, but just to give some balance. It gives some sense of, within the game, the power level of these individuals. And it also even says, if the players get to a point where they're rivaling them, retire them. Let them move up into those pantheons. Let them start their own. Let them become demigods in their own right, and then they can move on and start anew with fresh characters and play. So there's all of that happening there. But one of the aspects of these books that's right toward the beginning, when they're talking about all the breakdowns of how the stats work and what they've added to the game, one of the important facts was the extensions of the tables for the various ability scores. This helps out a lot for DMs because of ways in which player characters can advance above that. Now, of course, 18 is top for PCs as a general rule, but there are librams, there are tomes, there are wish spells, there are various magical items, there are ways of being granted bonuses above 18 in the various scores. And what they did was they took a look at each of the 6 ability scores and extended them. So look at how strength goes up through 25. So although there was a percentage roll with strength in the standard rules, so an 1801 to 50 was nothing better, but 51 on up through 100 incrementally became better and better and better and better. But now, take a look at 19. Hit bonus, +3. Damage, +7. Weight allowance, 4,500. Open doors, 7 in 8. Not using a 6-sider. Look at how that goes up to 23 and 24 when you get up to 25 strength. 100% as per a Titan. And they equate the bend bars, lift gates percentages as the various types of giants. So we know that the various types of giants have these higher strength scores. Well, they did this with strength. They did it with intelligence. And they had a couple sections. I've gerrymandered them so we can put them all on one screen, all the intelligence stuff. In monsters, this indicates the basic equivalent of human IQ. Certain monsters are instinctively or otherwise cunning, and such is accordingly noted in the body of the descriptive material. The ratings correspond roughly to the following character intelligence scores. So, not intelligent, not rateable, right? That's a rock. And animal intelligence is equivalent of a 1. So 3 to 18 you roll for a regular character. Semi-intelligence, 2 to 4, low. Average human intelligence, 8 to 10. Very intelligence, 11 or 12. Highly intelligent, exceptionally genius, super genius, godlike intelligence, 21 and up. And if you manage to gain a higher than 18 intelligence, minimum number of spell levels, spells per level, is much higher, which is really nice. Chance to know each spell. Well, if you have a 24 intelligence, you know them all upon gaining them without needing to roll a knowledge, a no spell thing. Spell immunities, look at these. Illusions, even high-level illusions when you're really intelligent and phantasm spells. Simply you just ignore them. Beings of very high intelligence will not be fooled by illusion or phantasm spells. They will note some inconsistency or inexactness, which will prevent their belief in the illusion. A being with a 19 intelligence will never believe a first-level illusion or phantasm spell, even if cast by a high-level spellcaster, and will thus avoid all effects. Beings with greater intelligence can also ignore higher-level illusions. As indicated, all effects noted are cumulative. A 20 intelligent gives immunity to first and second-level illusions, it is to say. So we got increased intelligence going up to 25, and wisdom. Following table applies to scores over 18. Bonus spells, a 4th and a 1st, a 4th and a 2nd. And remember, these two, well, we'll get down to that. Spell immunities. So a high-level wisdom gives you immunity to cause fear, charm person, command, friends, hypnotism. Look at these. Hold person, not affected if your wisdom is 20 or more. Beguiling, domination at 21. Suggestion at 22. Confusion at 22. Feeble mind does not affect you if your wisdom is 23 or higher. Hold monster, not affected. Can't be put in magic jar. Gish, mass suggestion, rulership. Finger of death does not affect you if your wisdom is 25 or higher. And look at all those bonus spells. Beings of very high wisdom are immune to the effects of certain charm-like spells, psionic abilities, and spell-like effects. These immunities are cumulative with higher wisdom. Beings with high wisdom are simply able to automatically throw off the effects of these spells. Well, we're also looking at dexterity. Look at the reaction adjustments. +3, +3, +4, +4, +4, +5, +5. The defensive adjustment can get as high as -6. And note, the last 5 columns, pickpockets, etc., apply only to beings with thief, assassin, and monk abilities. Picking pockets, open locks, locate and remove traps, move silently, hiding in shadows. Those are the bonuses you gain on top of whatever else you were gaining from your level. Constitution, no ones rolled. Look at that. If you're 19 or higher, you re-roll 1s. 1s and 2s. If you're 21 or 1, 2s, or 3s are re-rolled if your Constitution is 24, and you already get a +7 to your hit point adjustment. Look at that poison save bonus. Very nice. Regeneration at Constitution at 20 or higher. And it takes a long time when it's at 20, but look at this, 1 point per turn when your Constitution is 25. This hit point adjustment, let's look at this. Asterisk. The additions to each hit die are for fighter, paladins, and rangers only. All beings without one of these classes have received no more than 2 bonus points per die. The other modifications to the dice are applicable to any class. The notation "no one's rolls" indicates that anyone's rolled when hit points are being figured should be counted as 2s. Not rerolls, my bad. At 21, 22 Constitution, 1s and 2s are counted as 3s, and so on. So it just moves it up a place. But better than rolling a 1 or a 2. Charisma. There's actually a couple of sheets here. Look at the henchmen you can gain with the higher scores on charisma. The loyalty base, 100% loyalty if you're at a 24 or 25 charisma. Reaction adjustment. Oh, I'm just so charming. Up to 12 hit die levels, awe power. We'll talk about that. Awe power is defined as the reverential fear or dread or overpowering desire to worship caused by the mere sight and presence of a divinity. In every case dealing with the levels listed, creatures that gaze upon a divine being will be stunned into inaction so that they will be aware of nothing but the presence of the deity until the deity disappears from sight. No saving throw. This works through any control up to including magic jar spell. Stunned creatures cannot initiate any other action than physical defense if attacked while under the influence of an awe power. Note that the awe power applies only to divine being, gods and demigods. Mortal being persons who somehow acquire godlike charisma will not radiate that aura. So there's that. That was Constitution. There's a little more on charisma. In certain instances, some divinities are so loathsome and repellent as to actually have a negative charisma. This applies to the truly ghastly divine beings. The horror which their appearance and presence inspires causes creatures in the hit dice and level range noted below to be stunned with fear and detestation until the being is no longer in sight. While in this condition, a creature can do nothing but defend itself physically against attacks, as with awe power, even if a person were to be given negative charisma through some terrible curse or change, he or she would not acquire the horror ability. The reaction of the average creature to the hypothetical non-divine being with a negative charisma would be a desire to kill it immediately. But look at those. Charisma score. If your charisma is a -1, look at that reaction as -40%. Horror, up to 1 hit die per or level. So if you're a 6th level being and you run up against a -4 charisma creature, you are horrified. Beings with negative charisma will never have henchmen of a normal nature. Well, there you go. That tells us a lot about the different things that can happen when something changes for those various stats, ability scores, that is, beyond the 3 to 18 range. I think it's good to have those things from that book. So if you gain nothing else from deities and demigods, those stat adjustments are a big deal. But there's a lot of other stuff in there. I mean, if you're going to have clerics in your world, you're going to need some deities or demigods or pantheons of them. And even if you don't use them directly out of deities and demigods, then it's still good to have them as a guide for creating your own. So that's a look at the deities and demigods, and it's been exciting getting a chance to look this over for Jim Ward Day. We'll be back with additional pantheons down the line. I definitely want to look at the Arthurian one and the Norse one and a few others, so we'll set up individual videos for those. We've been looking at the first edition Advanced Dungeons & Dragons Deities and Demigods. This was part 3 of a short series. Show streams live on Twitch each Wednesday at 10 a.m. Central, and then it's archived on YouTube. Like, subscribe, follow, all that fun stuff. And you can support the channel even at the free level on Patreon and join such illustrious supporters as Tom Tullis of Fat Dragon Games, Carlos Lysing of Castle Entertainment, Heath Farndon of the AD&D 20, Dave O'Brien, unauthorized user, Dethangel Shadow, Heidi and Eric Gygax Garland of Gaxland, Vince Ragusa, thanks for being in the chat today, buddy, of the Maroon Room, a prog rock band of note, Daniel Caldwell of Griffin and Gargoyle, Martin Thomas of Daddy Rolled a One, a YouTube channel. That's very good old school content. Christian Garcia, Stephanie Lesniewski-Gruchow, Cera Toppilopkus, Colin Szablewski, Sergeant Zeno, Bruiser Nate Mosier, Rod Garcia, John Smith, and as always, Shane Bradley, DM Extraordinaire. This has been the OK Grognard Show from beautiful Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. Thank you, and bye-bye.